I think they were always very careful that things didn't, you know, they thought it's all a bit too much, really. And Oscar, for goodness sake, she's only 14.
You thought The Parent Trap was just about adorable twins and a happy ending. But behind the scenes, Disney's perfect image was a lie. Hayley Mills, the studio's shining star, was being set up to lose everything by the very system that made her famous. Her only ally? Maureen O'Hara, the so-called tyrant who stood up to Disney. This is the truth about the money, the secrets, and the battle that saved the star's life. The clashing eras. A force of nature meets the glad girl. To millions everywhere, Hayley Mills was like a ray of sunshine. She didn't just act as the endlessly hopeful orphan in Disney's 1960 film Pollyanna. She truly brought her to life. That unforgettable role as the glad girl who brightens a gloomy New England town launched her into worldwide fame and earned her a Special Academy Juvenile Award in 1961, the last one ever awarded. Right after that success, she took on the challenge of playing twin sisters Susan and Sharon in the dazzling special effects hit, The Parent Trap. Her image was the definition of wholesome 60s family cinema. Decades later, however, that very image is being exploited. Right now, all over social media, articles are popping up with dramatic headlines about a shocking truth or a secret feud between the stars of that beloved film. These stories claim there's a hidden scandal Hollywood kept under wraps for 60 years, hinting at something darker behind the Disney sparkle. To get to the truth behind the rumors, we need to start with the woman everyone's talking about. The actress who played her mother, Maureen O'Hara, a powerful presence on screen whose strength has been a controversial trait. While Hayley Mills represented the fresh, radiant face of Disney's future, Maureen O'Hara stood as a striking symbol of Hollywood's storied past, a star whose story was built with passion and the bright colors of Technicolor. Born Maureen Fitzsimons in Ireland, she arrived in Hollywood as a fiery spirit. But it wasn't long before she became known as Maureen O'Hara, one of the most commanding and unforgettable figures ever to grace the silver screen. Early in her career, she teamed up with the legendary director John Ford, and their partnership created masterpieces that defined cinematic Ireland. Films like How Green Was My Valley and the global favorite, The Quiet Ma, cemented her image. She was often paired with John Wayne, not as a delicate love interest, but as an equal, a woman who could match him punch for punch. Her striking beauty, her famous red hair and dazzling green eyes earned her the nickname Queen of Technicolor. But O'Hara's legendary status was not just about looks or talent. It was about her strength. Hollywood in the 1940s and 50s was a tough business, a studio system run almost entirely by powerful men. For a woman, especially one who refused to play the victim or the pushover, maintaining control of her career was a constant battle. O'Hara was known for doing her own demanding stunts and fighting relentlessly for fair pay and good scripts. She would famously refuse to be intimidated by studio heads, which unfortunately led to her developing a reputation in the press as being difficult or stern. This assertive nature, which was truly a survival mechanism in a male-dominated environment, is the very thing that modern clickbait articles now twist into supposed feud material. They take her reputation for being tough and try to make it sound mean, completely missing the fact that her toughness was her shield. She was an uncompromising professional, a force of integrity in an industry full of compromises. By the time The Parent Trap came along in 1961, O'Hara was a veteran star in her 40s, a different generation from her teenage co-star. Walt Disney knew exactly what he was doing by casting her as Maggie McKendrick, the mother of the twins. He wasn't just looking for any actress. He needed someone with a strong presence to bring depth and maturity to the story of a fractured family. She became the force that balanced the film's wild, split-screen energy. Portraying a refined Boston mother, she was a woman who had experienced life fully and earned respect, serving as the perfect contrast to the youthful spirit of Hayley Mills playing two roles simultaneously. Her background was completely different from the young Hayley Mills, who had grown up in the industry but still carried a great deal of shyness. Maureen O'Hara had fought in the trenches of the studio system to get where she was. When the formidable Maureen O'Hara met the shy 14-year-old Hayley Mills, the difference in their experience created a tension, not one of conflict, but of respect and anticipation. It wasn't a battle of egos, but rather the meeting of two very different Hollywood worlds, one shaped by youthful charm, the other by unwavering determination. This encounter laid the groundwork for a bond that would become unexpectedly important to both of them. Hayley Mills has said that when O'Hara walked onto the set, there was an unmistakable energy, a kind of immediate presence that commanded attention. She admitted she was instantly and completely in awe of her co-star. This first impression brought a strong sense of professional intimidation. O'Hara was a seasoned star with over 20 years of experience, having faced powerful studio heads and worked alongside legendary filmmakers like John Ford. Mills was still just Walt Disney's golden girl, learning the ropes. O'Hara was famously a strict professional. She came prepared, she expected excellence, and she did not tolerate half measures from anyone. Hayley Mills recognized this immediately, noting that O'Hara's commanding presence was both inspiring and intimidating. This simple comment was spurned by the media into something more sinister, hinting at hatred. They took Mills' words out of context, saying that she called O'Hara hostile. But Mills insisted that it was the kind of intimidation you feel when you are witnessing a master at work. In truth, the tension on the set was entirely professional, not personal. Beneath O'Hara's strong exterior was a very warm, affectionate, and protective woman. Mills has described her as wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and demonstrative, someone who was constantly talking, laughing, and giving out hugs. What developed between them wasn't a rivalry, it was a mentor-mentee bond. For Mills, every day was a masterclass. She watched how O'Hara carried herself, how she demanded respect, and how she grounded the wild comedy with genuine emotion. O'Hara, recognizing a talented young actress under immense pressure, used her own strength to offer guidance. She was teaching Hayley how to be a professional woman who could survive the often cruel world of Hollywood. This education was the true story of the Parent Trap set. It was a preparation for the inevitable moment when the Disney fairy tale would end and the real-world battles would begin. While a genuine mentorship grew between them, a real conflict was happening behind the scenes. This wasn't between the two stars, but between an actress and the system that could make or break her. It was a struggle over respect, money, and power that would change the actress's relationship with Walt Disney forever. The corporate betrayal and counsel for survival. When Maureen O'Hara signed on for The Parent Trap, it was far more than just another movie. It was a carefully calculated career move. Even a star of her magnitude needed to strategically manage her image, and the clean, wholesome reputation of Walt Disney Productions was exactly the public relations boost she needed at the time. Yet, despite her status as a global icon, the studio initially treated her like a desperate applicant instead of the queen she was. This is where the conflict of the production began, a war fought not in headlines, but in contract rooms. The studio believed O'Hara was desperate for work after a pause in her film career, initially offering her only a portion of her standard salary. When the offer came through, O'Hara's agent delivered the shocking news. Walt Disney was only offering her 1/3 of her standard salary. She was used to earning a hefty fee, and this reduced amount was a slap in the face. It was a classic move by a studio mogul trying to leverage an actor's need for work. O'Hara's agent and others urged her to take it, arguing that the picture's success would be worth more than the money. But the actress, who had fought the system for decades to establish her worth, refused to cave. Her response was immediate and firm. She would not devalue her 20 years of experience for any studio, no matter how famous the mouse was. She stood her ground, asserting her value and her right to fair pay. After a tense back and forth, O'Hara won the negotiation battle. The studio finally agreed to pay her the full, deserved amount, a victory that she would later call one of the happiest days of her life. It validated her core belief: if you know your worth, you must demand it. But this victory was fleeting, as the studio found another way to exercise its power, transforming the win into a bitter defeat. In Hollywood, the order of names on a poster known as the billing is a huge indicator of respect and stardom. As the established legend and adult lead, O'Hara's contract reportedly stipulated she would receive top billing. But when the promotional materials were released, the entire front of the campaign was dedicated to showcasing the technical feat of the movie. The posters read, in enormous letters, "Walt Disney presents Hayley Mills and Hayley Mills in The Parent Trap," starring Maureen O'Hara and Brian Keith. This was a calculated, genius piece of marketing. It leveraged the groundbreaking split-screen technology and promoted Hayley Mills, the studio's rising golden girl who was playing both twins, positioning her as the spectacle itself. For the studio, it was an easy choice: prioritize the spectacle and the youthful star over the veteran's contract. This move sparked immediate speculation. Did the Queen of Technicolor resent the teenage star whose double image had now overshadowed her own legendary name? For O'Hara, this was a clear, direct corporate betrayal. Her fight for the billing, which she took all the way up the studio chain, was not out of ego. It was a fight for professional honor. She had delivered on her end, bringing maturity, gravity, and her box office appeal to the film. When she challenged Walt Disney directly on the matter, the famously demanding mogul reportedly issued a stunning threat, warning her that he could destroy her career if she did not back down. This shocking exchange made one thing perfectly clear: the studio viewed her not as a collaborator, but as a replaceable part. The most important realization, the one often missed in the quick retelling of this story, is that O'Hara's anger was directed solely at the corporate entity breaking its word. She never once harbored any resentment toward Hayley Mills. In fact, she saw the young star as another potential victim of the same system. O'Hara knew Disney was using Mills's double image to diminish her, and that the same ruthless tactics would eventually be turned on the younger actress. O'Hara ultimately lost the battle for the billing, forced to concede to the studio's massive power. But in a move that spoke volumes about her integrity, she never worked for Walt Disney Productions again. This one powerful act of principle solidified her reputation as a woman who would not be bought or bullied. Having fought the system herself and seen its raw cruelty, O'Hara knew the immense dangers facing a child star swimming in the Hollywood current. The advice she gave Mills in those moments was not light chatter, but a vital, practical survival guide for a difficult, often brutal industry. It was a necessary preparation for the storm she knew was coming for the young star. The reality of the billing war faded the moment O'Hara stepped back onto the set, but the lesson it left behind lingered, stayed with a bitter taste. Her struggle was a gift to Hayley Mills, a live, real-world demonstration of how quickly studio admiration could turn into corporate hostility. This was the moment their bond went beyond the script. O'Hara shifted from co-star to a kind of unofficial guardian, showing Mills the important lessons that Hollywood contracts never cover. O'Hara knew that if a studio would try to diminish a veteran star, they would certainly exploit a naive teenager. This mentorship became an essential survival guide for a business designed to chew up young talent. Maureen O'Hara took full advantage of the set downtime. In between camera setups and lengthy technical waits required for the split-screen filming, she would pull the shy, polite Mills aside. Her advice wasn't about acting skills. It was about handling the business side of being a woman with power. She zeroed in on two key things: money and self-respect. She wasn't warning O'Hara about bad people. She was warning her about the entire infrastructure, the legal and financial machinery that saw talented women as valuable, temporary commodities. O'Hara explicitly stressed the importance of knowing her contracts, of asking hard questions and, most critically, of trusting her own gut over the polished words of any executive or even an overly eager family member who might assume control. She warned her that the studio would constantly try to convince her that her boundless talent was enough, that the checks would always keep coming, and that she didn't need to worry about the numbers. O'Hara told her that this illusion of security was the most dangerous trick of all. Mills learned from these talks that O'Hara thought Hollywood fame was just a pretty trick. The older actress had lived the harsh reality of every bit of advice she gave. She had fought studio executives for fair pay her entire career and was actively battling a major studio over broken contract terms right there on the Disney lot. O'Hara made it clear that while the on-screen magic belonged to the audience, an actor's earnings and personal life belonged to them alone, and she warned Mills fiercely that nobody in the studio system would prioritize a star's security over their own profit. O'Hara's counsel was steeped in her own documented distrust of the system. Mills absorbed O'Hara's philosophy. She must know her contracts, ask hard questions, and trust her own gut over the polished words of any executive. O'Hara's lesson was that the illusion of continuous fame and security was the most dangerous trick of all. She had earned the reputation of a firebrand because she demanded what she was owed, and she passed that lesson on. O'Hara demonstrated how to be unyielding and assertive without allowing oneself to be labeled difficult. In O'Hara's view, allowing your kindness to be mistaken for weakness was the quickest way for the studio to chew you up and spit you out like a sour taste in the mouth. This was necessary advice for a young English girl naturally inclined to be polite and a people-pleaser, traits that are often a recipe for financial and emotional disaster in the Hollywood world. Mills, who was busy trying to perfect a Southern California accent for her Susan twin, found herself learning a much more crucial language: the language of professional self-defense. Years later, the painful truth of O'Hara's foresight would hit Mills with devastating force. As her memoirs confirm, the young star would eventually discover that a substantial portion of the enormous fortune she earned during her Disney era had been completely siphoned away or lost to the incredibly high taxes imposed on her foreign income, leaving her nearly broke in her 20s. The very danger Maureen O'Hara had warned her about came to pass. The illusion of security, the trust she placed in the adults controlling her earnings, all dissolved into court battles and financial ruin. When that realization struck, the grown woman must have heard O'Hara's clear, protective voice echoing back to her across the years. The tough, loving counsel given on that one set became the foundation for how Mills eventually fought to reclaim her resources and her future, realizing the immense wisdom and loyalty her fierce mentor had demonstrated. This mentorship, grounded in true professional integrity and shown through everyday actions, is the real story but the flashy headlines completely miss the real story and legacy. The years immediately following The Parent Trap saw Hayley Mills reach an unprecedented level of fame, but they also marked the beginning of her difficult and painful transition away from the Pollyanna persona. She was Disney's property, their emblem of purity and sunshine, a brand that was impossible for the growing young woman to sustain. The audience, having embraced the flawless, cheerful image of the glad girl presented to them, was not ready for Hayley Mills to grow up, and the studio certainly wasn't either. The intense pressure to stay forever young created a deep emotional gap between who she truly was and the public persona crafted for her. Her film roles in the mid-60s became a series of gentle attempts to break the mold while still holding on to the Disney safety net. Films like Summer Magic and That Darn Cat were hits, proving her continued box office power, but they still kept her firmly locked in the genre of wholesome, light-hearted fun. When she stepped away, the experience was unsettling. She took on more complex, adult-themed projects, seeking the kind of challenging material her mentor O'Hara had always embraced. A choice she would later discover was double-edged. A film like The Chalk Garden, where she played a manipulative, troubled teenager, showed her range but confused an audience that expected only delight from her. The ultimate break came with a controversial film called Twisted Nerve, where she took on a deeply psychological adult role. For the public, this was a scandalous departure. The transformation was too drastic, too sudden for a fan base that demanded she stay frozen in time as a bubbly teen twin. The very act of growing up was seen as a betrayal of the promise of innocence the studio had sold. The media, which had once praised her as the Golden Girl, began to critique her choices, creating the very narrative of a fallen star that Hollywood loves to manufacture. The pressure to constantly embody an ideal that no human could maintain led to deep personal struggles, including issues with body image and self-worth. She was desperately trying to satisfy the adults around her, forgetting the essential lesson O'Hara had taught her: know your value and defend yourself. Mills was caught between two worlds. In one world, she was the shy, artistic daughter of a famous acting family, searching for serious roles and authentic expression. In the other, she was a multi-million-dollar industry, required to maintain a glossy, perfect figure. When the harsh financial reality of her lost earnings finally struck in her 20s, it was more than just a financial setback. It was a realization that everything she had built her life around, the promise of Disney, the trust in the adults, was fragile like a house of cards. The betrayal O'Hara had warned her about didn't come as a sudden shock, but as a slow, ongoing depletion of her resources and sense of self. This realization, this painful end of innocence, became the essential context through which she would later view her experience with Maureen O'Hara, understanding the weight of her mentor's advice only after she needed it most. She now understood exactly why O'Hara had to be so fierce, that strength wasn't a choice, but a vital necessity for survival. Going through the Disney betrayal herself gave her the empathy and insight to truly understand the reality behind her legendary co-star. Now we jump forward to the present day, 60 years after The Parent Trap first charmed the world. The film is a beloved classic, passed down through generations, yet its legacy, and specifically Maureen O'Hara's part in it, has been warped by the modern media machine. This is where the story of integrity meets the age of the algorithm. Today, the powerful tool that creates fame is not the studio system, but the internet, and its currency is sensationalism. Hayley Mills quietly observes as her deeply valued memories get twisted into mere clickbait, losing their real meaning in the process. A simple story of professional difference like the billing dispute, is morphed into headlines screaming, "Shocking truth! The secret feud Disney hid," or "Maureen O'Hara's cruel treatment of Hayley Mills." The algorithm doesn't reward complexity, it rewards conflict. It takes O'Hara's famous strength and reinterprets it through a modern, cynical lens, transforming her defensive armor into an offensive weapon against a young girl. The true story of O'Hara's principled fight against corporate betrayal is discarded for the easier, more marketable narrative of two actresses fighting. The irony here is brutal. In the 1950s, O'Hara's career nearly ended because of a scandalous magazine article that falsely accused her of engaging in immoral behavior, a lie she had to fight in court to debunk. She faced down real, malicious journalism designed to exploit and destroy. Now, years later, the battle is against a new kind of harm: online posts using her image to spread fake outrage. The effect of seeing this twist on her story is really strong. Mills talks about how sad it is to watch a woman she looked up to, a woman who truly protected and taught her, have her legacy misused. She feels a strong duty to clear things up, not to be dramatic, but to honor a mentor who taught her what integrity means. The truth she finally shares is not a shocking expose, but a simple human narrative. O'Hara was a lifeline, not an enemy. She was stern because she had to be. She was uncompromising because her entire career had been a fight for survival. She was different from everyone else, like a bright star in a sky full of plain ones, but now people are wrongly saying her difference is something bad. This distortion is an insult to O'Hara's hard-won reputation. It also diminishes the true value of the bond they shared. The real strength of their story is that it's not a feud. It is a powerful example of female mentorship in a challenging industry. Maureen O'Hara's essential counsel about protecting your earnings and asking hard questions is a far more valuable story than any fake scandal about pie-throwing grudges. Mills's willingness to speak is her way of fighting back against the pervasive cynicism of the digital age. It is her definitive statement that the truth is often much quieter and more profound than the lies the internet wants you to click on. The real story is about how one fiery icon spent her time on a Disney set, preparing her young co-star to navigate the financial and emotional betrayals that were guaranteed to come. Hayley Mills's final reckoning with her past and Maureen O'Hara's legacy brings the entire journey to a powerful, emotional conclusion. The story of The Parent Trap isn't just about mischievous twins reuniting their parents, but about the real lessons of strength and integrity that passed from one generation of Hollywood women to the next. The decades of silence, where the public was content with the simple narrative of the Disney ideal, are now over. Mills is finally using her voice not to start a rumor, but to kill one, and in doing so, she pays the ultimate tribute to her mentor. The true legacy of Maureen O'Hara, the Queen of Technicolor, is not just her striking beauty or her fiery film roles, but her uncompromising professional integrity. She stood up to Walt Disney over a contract, knowing full well the man could damage her future career, and she sacrificed future earnings with the studio to maintain her principle. That act of defiance, which the internet tries to paint as a cold standoff, was for Hayley Mills, the greatest, most visible example of strength she could have been shown. It was a clear lesson that some things, like your name, your contract, and your self-respect, are worth far more than any paycheck or professional convenience. For Mills, this journey is deeply personal. Her life came full circle when, years after her original Academy Juvenile Award was stolen, the Academy recognized her history and presented her with a replacement Oscar. This new statue, beautiful, heavy and full-sized, stands in her home. It is a symbol of her talent, but also a constant reminder of the price of fame and the necessity of strength. It stands there not just as a reward for Pollyanna, but as a testament to the resilient woman she became. A woman who successfully fought for the truth about her stolen earnings, forged by the very fire O'Hara helped her understand. Today, Hayley Mills lives by the values her mentor taught her. Though her early career was full of pressure from Hollywood, she now focuses on choosing good work and valuing peace over chasing constant fame. She still acts in some projects, picking roles that challenge her and bring her joy, far from the tiring image of the glad girl. When she speaks publicly, her tone is calm and thoughtful, showing the strength of someone who learned early on what the industry really demands. It is in this present that she holds the memory of Maureen O'Hara most fondly, when the Queen of Technicolor passed away peacefully in 2015. The loss hit Mills deeply. She wasn't just mourning a co-star, she was mourning a lifeline. She often remembers O'Hara's key traits: her loud, welcoming laugh, her instant warmth, and that strong, fiery spirit that showed real strength. She was very real and down to earth, Mills recalls. What you saw on screen was the truth of her soul, only bigger. Mills often thinks of O'Hara not in a glamorous spotlight, but in the moments between takes, offering practical wisdom about contracts and tax lessons that saved her life and career. Her memory is of O'Hara's generosity, using her status not for vanity, but for the protection of others. This respect is the authentic story the public deserves to know. The story we are telling today is a celebration of that authentic strength. It is a message to everyone who consumes content online. The most compelling stories are rarely the most dramatic ones. The truth about Hayley Mills and Maureen O'Hara is one of mentorship, respect, and a protective bond between two formidable women. The firebrand Irish star saw the dangers ahead and taught her young co-star how to build a shield of self-respect. In telling her side of the story now, Mills ensures that O'Hara's legacy is remembered for what it truly was: a force of nature driven by integrity. This truth is the final twist that proves that the illusion of innocence can only be broken by the reality of genuine love and professional respect. Hayley Mills, guided by the memory of O'Hara's strength, continues to be a consummate professional, carrying the torch of an era where integrity truly mattered. Do you think the industry has really changed since Hayley and Maureen's time? Or are the same games still being played in secret? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, click on the next video on your screen. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.